Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make another prop from my current favorite show on Disney+, Loki. I'm going to make Miss Minutes. In fact, I'm going to make two. So I want to make Miss Minutes out of foam, because I like working with foam. It's my thing. But I'm going to use Plastizote foam. The difference is EVA foam is, well, a different type of foam, but it's solid, right? Plastizote foam is translucent, so you can actually shine light through it. So if I build Miss Minutes' main body out of Plastizote foam, I can then put LEDs inside of her and she'll glow just like she is when she's walking around on the desk that Loki's sitting at. I need to cut 2 circles for her main body, and my circle cutter is not able to cut one big enough. Now, a compass is good, but still not quite what I had in mind. I wanted something I could just use as a template. And I laughed when I realized that my shop clock was actually really a good size. I'm going to make her body out of Plastizote foam, which is easier to cut than EVA foam. I can barely feel it with a sharp knife. I figured out the circumference of my new foam circles. About 72 centimeters or 28 inches, somewhere around there. Okay. Cut a 28-inch strip, 1.5 inches wide for the outside wall. Then cut 2 more at 5/8 of an inch wide as spacers for inside the body. Apply contact cement to some of the parts and let it dry. Then carefully stick the outside wall to the front of the body. Follow that with one of the thinner strips. So I want to put LEDs inside of it. Well, that's why I've got 2 additional rings of half-size pieces so I can support a piece of plastic in between the 2 halves to attach the LEDs to. I'm going to cut that piece of plastic out of a piece of plastic. This is a piece of scrap thermoforming plastic. It'll be just fine. This clear plastic will be a place to stick the LED strips to, and I hope the center is going to be a good place to mount them. The LEDs that I want to use are the same COB LEDs that I just used on the time baton. Main reason is they're a warm white. Some of those red tones like orange don't glow very bright, so I'll use warm white and then paint the body orange, and hopefully that will work better and give me a slightly brighter end result. The plastic disc is kind of small. I don't want to just wrap the LEDs around it, but I can cut the strip at any of the lines that are printed on it. And the strip is self-adhesive, so applying it to the plastic is easy. I tried to evenly cover the disc. I don't want hot spots and dark spots. So that's nearly the entire strip for one side. I suppose I'm only going to put strips on one side. I don't really have, if I have any more LEDs I can put on the back, they're the same color. I do need to reconnect the power to the strips, but this is better than bending the LEDs and possibly breaking them again. So this is pretty much the entire strip on just one side. The other side doesn't have any light. So I'm going to be favoring the light projection towards her face from the inside. Whatever light spills through is going to spill through. Hopefully I'll get some. I just ran out of, I ran out of strip. This is all I got left. It's 5 volt. So all I have to do is plug it into like a phone charger and it'll light up. So let's see if my solders are any good. A couple of alligator clips to reconnect the USB plug. Oh yeah! Oh, that's good and bright. Oh, totally. All right. Oh, yeah, that blows the camera right out, doesn't it? Okay. I set my light disc back into the body. Now nothing is glued yet. I'm just checking out how it looks. I'm sure on camera that looks just fine. I've got my light set halfway. This was my plan when I was going to put lights on both sides. Actually, she lights up really well. But I can still see lines. I can see dark spots. Let's see if I put both halves together. I was going to put the LEDs in the middle because I thought I'd have lights on both sides of the plastic. Now I'm going to change that plan and just put the plastic disc at her back to spread the light better inside towards her front. Ooh. Oh yeah. Okay, that is equally illuminated all the way across her face. There's a little bit of glow on the side, even though it's double thick, and it's even coming through the back a little bit. So what I want to be sure I do is the lines, you may not be able to see them because I know it's bright for the camera. I can see dark spots where the LED strips are. So I want to make sure the lines are either straight up and down or shoulder to shoulder. They're not at a weird angle. And that's going to be the body. It's even glowing on the, it's even casting light. Oh, that's great. Okay, this is working. I'm also really glad it's as bright as it is, because putting a color on it, gonna paint her with a translucent orange, is gonna knock the light down. So brighter now is good, because she won't be quite as bright later. Well, she'll always be smart, but she won't glow as brightly. Okay. I glued the second strip in place now. If I was to start over, I would just cut one bigger strip and put that inside. I'm gonna want to, I think I'll do her arms next. Arms and legs. If I get arms and legs done, I can get the body glued together, because I can get the... So wiring's an issue. Something I was thinking about is, how am I gonna power Miss Minutes? I could, there's enough room in the body, you could put a battery pack up in her body, but her whole body is supposed to glow, and a battery pack's gonna cause a shadow. Next thought I had was, I'll put the batteries in her feet. Once I was really looking at her proportions, she's got dainty little feet, and a battery pack isn't gonna fit in her feet. I could maybe stand a battery on end and make her legs a little thicker, but that isn't gonna look good either. So my plan is to just run a USB cord out the back of one of her feet, and she'll just have to be plugged in externally. That's not as exciting, but it'll work, and it'll preserve the look of the character better. I make her arms from the same foam, rolling it into a tube, and cut it to about 3.5 inches long. That's about right. By making her arms from the same material, they'll take the paint the same way. They may not glow, but they will be the same color. I don't have thick armature wire in the shop, but I can twist a few strands of what I do have, which will make a stronger wire. Because in order to keep the foam arms bent, I'm gonna need a stronger wire inside that foam. Oh yeah, that's the right idea. I made the wires long enough that they can go through a hole in the side of the body and then spread out again. I also super glued a washer inside the body to help hold the wire and protect the foam edge. Armature wire through the hole, arm over the wire, and a little super glue at the wrist to hold the arm on. The arm can move just a little because it's being held on by the bent wire. That's gonna work. While I was working, Joe sculpted a couple of sets of hands from some EVA foam clay. Now these are already safe to touch, but they had started to crack on the surface while they were drying. So I gently spread Alex Fast Dry spackle over the cracks to fill them in. I can sand these a little once everything is dry. And I had also started working on making some glowing feet. Now the first couple of versions I did were really rough. I was sort of trying to figure out the shape, but the seams were not gonna work. It was just too many seams. Then I started playing with how to minimize the seam, maybe just having a toe, but then why not just make that one piece? And then it became a trick of trying to get the heel to actually work. And I think I've got a pattern, put her feet left and right. I think I've got a pattern that's gonna work. And this, of course, allows me to have a version that's going to be able to light up. It's a simple two-piece pattern with a seam at the heel. I spread contact cement over all of the sole. That way when it dries, I can stick the LEDs to the contact cement, and this foot will also have USB power coming out of the heel. Then I work the top of the foot over the sole, sticking it down just at the edges of the foot. I run wires out the leg hole in the top. The USB plug is just stuck in the seam of the heel. So my plan was to use brass tube. It'd give a tiny bit of weight. This really doesn't weigh anything. It'd give a tiny bit of weight. It would certainly be strong enough. And of course it's a tube, so the wires will go through it. Sprinkler pipe risers should be plenty strong enough. They're a bit more flexible. They're plastic, which is kind of nice. That makes them easier to work with. And there's still enough of a center hole that the wires fit. So I'm gonna go with sprinkler pipe risers. I think I want the legs to be about 2.5 inches long, plus an inch for the foot, and another 3/4 of an inch to glue inside of the body. I used my Cos Tools hole drill to make another hole in the sole of the foot, under the top leg hole. So I've got a wire I need to go through, but then I also want the pipe to come all the way through the sole, so it's gluing in the sole of the foot as well as coming out the top. 2 points of contact should keep it from wiggling, right? That means I'm going to need to glue, I'm going to need to drill a hole in the side of the pipe so I can feed the wire up through the side of the pipe. All seems very obvious to say it out loud, but I drill a pilot hole in the side and then make it larger, and at an angle it will be easier to feed the wires through. I can then push the wires through the side hole and it will feed out of the top of the tube where it can connect to the body. And the bottom will still fit through the sole. Using a heat gun, I can bend the tube to make knees. I just have to hold it until the plastic cools. Also, a small bend for the ankle. The tubes can be superglued into the foam. I glue in a third layer to the bottom of the body. This adds more material for the leg to be glued to. I drill 2 holes for the legs and test fit them all together. So her knee is going to have to bend forward a little bit. So it's time for the heat gun to come back into play. I can reheat and adjust the legs as needed until she stands on her own. The idea is to keep her center of mass directly over her feet. You know, balance. I use a couple of alligator clips to connect the wires. I need to be honest. If I've shorted out the feet, I'm going to be pretty upset. Like, I'll probably cry. No, I won't, but you know. Good. Good, 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 good. All right. I'm glad that playing with the wires and forcing them through the tubes and heating it up with a heat gun, and I didn't ruin the feet. All right. Super glue the legs to the body, and then somehow I was able to clip the wires short and solder them to the plastic sheet without melting the plastic, melting the foam, or melting my hand. Put her back together again. Will that hang? Oh, no, no. That'll drag it right off the table. Okay. Hey, Joe. So I got the Miss Minutes body working. Would you be willing to come over and airbrush her an orange, you know, a transparent orange? Sweet, thank you. Apply some contact cement around the back and the inside of the body. So contact cement sticks as soon as it makes contact. That's what it's supposed to do. But in order to keep them from sticking before I'm ready, I add pieces of poster board as a barrier. Then I can move the back panel to be in position and pull the poster board out of the way, and then everything can stick together. Adding the back changed the body shape just a little, so I needed to adjust the knee and not melt the foam. Time to check her balance. Will she still stand up? It's the weight of the cord. Okay. I've got bottles of glue falling over. That's great. She just totally blows out the camera. So I'm really glad that the light is this bright, because putting orange on it is going to darken the light a little bit, but I think this is going to work out just fine. I use PlaidFX primer as a base coat for the transparent orange. This primer dries clear and it'll let the next layer stick evenly. I was afraid the orange paint would just bead up on the Plastizote without a primer. Joe used the desktop vinyl cutter to cut some blue painter's tape into a paint mask, which is a great idea, except when the tape doesn't want to stick.
Okay, so we do have a big problem in that the masking tape is not sticking. Let me test vinyl.
The vinyl needs some help to stay in place, but it is sticking better than the blue tape.
It doesn't make a great seal, so I'm just going to have to do a lot of light coats.
Joe applies the transparent orange all over Miss Minutes in multiple light coats, trying to keep as even of a coat as possible. And it did take many coats of paint. He says he lost count after 3. Using the primer really did help. The airbrush paint stuck very well, and it didn't run at all. So I've tried many things to get Miss Minutes' face to work. Could you get your face on right? Anyway, vinyl isn't going to stick to the foam and the paint. We can see that with the masking. The cutting out craft foam, well, it didn't work with the cutter that I have, and then cutting out by hand looked too hand done, but then the 2mm thickness, it'll end up looking like a gingerbread cookie. So my next thing to try before I just paint it is I'm gonna see if I can't cut some black poster board. This is black on both sides and black in the middle. So when I cut it, everything will still be black. So a larger board like this, I'm gonna need to cut it down so it fits onto the cutting mat. This has got a bit of a self-adhesive, and then I can feed it into the cutter and hopefully get her face out. I cut the sheet smaller so it'll fit on the cutting mat. Sticking the paper to a cutting mat helps keep the pieces together and makes it easier for the cutter. I was able to get both sheets cut out without error both times. And since I'm experimenting, the machine didn't quite cut all the way through the paper, so I need to help clean up the cuts. How well does it fit? I'm all happy. Let's see if it fits. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's what I want. I'm gonna use good old craft glue to stick the paper pieces down to the foam. Normally, I don't use craft glue with EVA foam or Plastizote foam because I think it takes way too long to dry between pieces of foam. But right now it's gonna dry fast because I'm using paper. It takes some time to clean up the rest of the paper and remove all of the pieces I need. So now that I've removed all the parts I actually want to glue on, I have a stencil I can use to mark minutes of where to glue them. I line the stencil up with the eyes and mouth, and then I can trace where all the pieces go. I had cut out 2 copies, so I also had a stencil for the pupil placement. I would say it's as easy as adding glue to the paper pieces and sticking them all down, but getting some of these parts to fit correctly between the white and the orange is tricky. But it's worth it because I'm so very pleased with the look of the solid black lines and being able to get all of the clock face number marks in the correct positions. Once her face was ready, I just super glued her hands into place. Joe had painted them white while he was here. She's still too bright for the cameras. Well, I was really worried about it not being bright enough in person, so I made sure to put enough lights in here that should light up through the orange. She's too bright for the camera. That's really funny. But yeah, all right. But here in front of me, she looks perfect. So this is great. This is definitely yeah, I'm happy about this. I've got a cartoon character again. Oh yeah, this is way cool. I know with the color on the camera and the way lenses work, she looks very yellow and overly bright. She looks orange. She's got a really good glow to my eyes here in the room, which is probably more ideal. A lot of the times I build stuff so it looks right for the camera. This time, I'm really happy I got it built so it looks right to my eyes. One of the fun things is when Ellis came in. Ellis is my spouse and the editor for the videos, and they came in and were talking to me just generally, and I was using the clock to get the round face, you know, in the very beginning, right? Using it as a way of making my circles. And Ellis just says, "You need to do that." It's like, I need to do what? You need to make a minutes clock. I think that's a fantastic idea as well. So while I've been working on this, I've been trying to make the pieces that I need to take my shop clock and turn it into a minutes clock. Now, the clock isn't gonna be able to stand because this weighs too much for the feet, but I can still hang her on the wall, which I'm okay with that because minutes can float in thin air anyway, so let's see how quickly I can take my shop clock and turn it into a minutes clock. The longest thing is I gotta spray paint it. Thankfully, my shop clock can be disassembled very easily. There's just 5 screws on the back. And then the hands simply pull off. I'll have to clean that. I need to make sure that the arms and legs go where they need to go in relation to the clock. I mark her arms at 3 and 9 o'clock. Line up her legs at 6:30 and 5:30. I've already got her arms and hands done. I've already got her feet done. So what I need to do is drill holes and spray paint the body. Now I only have this one clock at this size, so I need to be careful not to break any pieces. Like that. And like that. And then these will wire in. All right. Let's make sure her body is orange. That'll work on her face. To prepare the plastic for painting, I clean the outside and mask off the front edge because I want that to stay black. Okay. Because the clock was black plastic, I'm going to hit it with white primer first. That way the orange will actually be a bright orange. Dry, dry, dry. Just dry. By the way, I've got the hangers through the armholes and I taped a bolt at the bottom to make sure that she'd stay upright while painting. Dry. Then a few coats of pumpkin orange. I printed Miss Minutes hour marks onto some white cardstock and then cut it to fit the clock. Then I covered the back of the cardstock with double-sided tape. Now I'm using a lot of tape because I want to be sure that the face is going to stay flat, because if it warps, it could stop the clock hands from moving. Then it's as easy as sticking it down and keeping the 12 o'clock mark at the top. Now I've got the hour marks put in right and I didn't crack any of the print. I want it to glow, so I'm going to take more of the same LEDs and just line the inside of the clock face. Before I stick the LEDs in, I add wires for power. Then I stick the LED strip as far forward on the walls of the clock as they can go. The concern that I have is being able to see the manufacturing marks on the LED strip. And you can see it totally plain as day. Okay, well that's what I wanted to know. I have to cover them. Okay, I can do that. I cut a 1 centimeter strip of poster board. I feel lucky that it was exactly 1 centimeter wide. And that strip fits right underneath the LED and it can stick in place with double-sided tape. I used white paper tape to fit around the edge, and when I was done, I cut it down to fit the clock. The wires in her arms let her be a little bit bendy. The arms are super glued in place. Her legs are also super glued, and I poked a nail into the plastic tube to help hold the legs to the body. She won't be able to stand because she was kind of made to hang. Just hang around. I cut a circle of polycarbonate plastic, and I'll put all the pieces that makes up her face onto this plastic, which will fit behind the glass. She needs to glow orange, but her eyes are white, so I bought a sheet of lighting gel and ran it through the cutter, and it worked like a charm. Haha! Oh, that's perfect. Oh yeah, that's great. I purposefully cut the film larger than the plastic disc. That way I can trim the film to fit easily if I need to. I never did check this one. This one works too, right? I just assumed that it would. Oh yeah, that lights up. Okay, all the LEDs work. I just need, where did I put my stickers for the face? Where did I put my stickers for the face? The stickers were upstairs in my office, just sitting next to the vinyl cutter. I used purple painter's tape as a transfer paper for the vinyl stickers, and I can't see through the purple tape well enough to place the eyes. I tried using the back of my first Miss Minutes as a light table. Now this did help, but it was still orange light coming through purple tape. And it took a couple of attempts, but I did get the vinyl placed for her face. Now I feel like I can safely peel the protective film from the back of the plastic disc. And I used some clear packing tape to be sure her face stays in the correct position. I had also used a few little pieces of some of that same double stick tape to hold the gel in place to the plastic disc. I replaced the glass, or really just kind of balance it here for the moment, and I cut notches in the orange gel for the screws. That way they won't tear through the gel when I put the clock back together. And then reassemble the clock. And out of habit, I tightened the screws in the same star pattern that you use for changing a tire. Time to check the lights again. Phenol. That makes me really happy. Okay. But she needs to be able to hang on the wall. And there's not that much room back here. But there is almost enough room, almost, for a 9-volt battery. But there's a problem with the 9-volt battery. The LEDs are 5-volt. So if I was to plug the 9-volt straight into the 5-volt, it would burn them out, like in a heartbeat or less. Now it's time to break out my disaster electronics box and pretend that I know what I'm doing. Let me summarize the next couple of painful hours for you. The potentiometer just didn't work, but I found that a 0-ohm resistor did the trick. I added a power switch for the LED lights, and the lights now get 4.6 volts of power, so they're much easier to look at and be able to tell the time. A list of all the materials I used to make both Miss Minutes are in the description. I am so happy with the way these turned out. Ellis, this was a great idea. In fact, I think my shop clock is going to get upgraded to become my office clock, at least for a while. And I'm really, really happy that we fought, because there's a little bit of fighting, with the vinyl cutter, to not only do the vinyl cut for the face, but to do the paper cut on this one here. That turned out really well. I love the exactness, the machine precision of cutting parts out like this. The look, I think, is just so much better than what it would have been had I followed through with hand cutting these. The hand cut of the lower jaw, it was just, the curve wasn't perfect, and the 2mm craft foam that I was going to use, just gonna make her look too much like, you know, Gingy from Shrek, right? The gingerbread cookie man. That wasn't gonna work. It's just really fun. This is fun. This was a fun build. If you enjoyed this build, if you enjoyed the Loki series, please let me know in the comments below. And you know, I'm really looking forward to episode 6. As I record this, episode 6 isn't out yet. So this video comes out the same day that the final episode of the Loki series will be coming out. And even though I'm really sure Miss Minutes isn't going to be the final boss, she isn't secretly going to be the head of the TVA that everyone's got to deal with, but the idea that, you know, the love child of Dr. Theopolis and the 7-Up Spot is somehow running the Time Variance Authority, I think is still a lot of fun, and I'm okay with that idea. Now, if you want to make your own Miss Minutes, I'm going to take the files that we use to create these, and I'll put them in the description of the video, so you can click on those and download them. And please, make them in any way you want, whether it's out of Plastizote foam, if you want to change out your own shop clock, if you want to do it in some new way and make your own version of Miss Minutes, please do, because I know there's going to be lots of different ways you can make the mascot to the TVA. But this and this is how Odin makes.
I should buy a jet ski.
So I got my plastic circle, it fits inside the body. I want to line this with the LEDs. I'm going to go ahead and forgot the glass. Dry, dry, dry. Just dry. I want to thank Brad Fowler, David Curtis, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.